timeless arts.
The secret of the Midnight Song. Paris in the 1830s was a city of golden light and velvet shadows. Inside the grandest ballrooms, the air smelled of expensive perfume and beeswax candles. At the center of it all was Frédéric, a young man with delicate hands and a heart that beat in time with the keys of his piano. Every time he played, the room fell silent, captivated by his genius. To the high society of Paris, he was a star who had everything. But when the applause faded and the guests went home, Frédéric was often found sitting by his window, staring at the moon. Despite his success, a quiet ache lived inside him. He was a long way from the rolling fields of Poland, the home he had been forced to leave. He missed the sound of the wind in the willows and the songs his mother used to sing. In the middle of bustling Paris, Frédéric was deeply, secretly lonely. One night, he sat down at his Pleyel piano. He didn't want to play the fast, flashy music the crowds demanded. He wanted to tell the truth. He began to play a soft, lilting melody in E-flat major. This would become his most famous work, the Nocturne No. 2. It wasn't just a song. It was a diary written in sound, a place where he could hide his secrets. As he played, the walls of his apartment seemed to melt away. In his mind, he wasn't in a cramped city. He was walking through the misty meadows of his childhood. The music captured the colors of a Polish sunset, purple, gold, and a deep, longing blue. This was the Nocturne, a song of the night, where the shadows of the past felt more real than the present. A young woman named Elodie, a fellow musician and a kind friend, stood outside his door. She had come to invite him to a gala, but she stopped when she heard the music. It was different from anything she had ever heard. It didn't sound like a performance. It sounded like a whisper. She stayed perfectly still, afraid that even a breath would break the spell. Eventually, Frédéric finished the piece, and Elodie knocked softly. "That melody," she said as she entered. "It sounds like a beautiful dream, but it feels like a heavy heart." "Why is it so sad, Frédéric?" He looked at her and realized that she had heard the secret hidden between the notes. "It is the sound of a man who is home in his dreams, but a stranger when he wakes up," he replied quietly. He sat back down and showed her the secret of the left hand. It played a steady, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat or the ticking of a clock. "This is the reality of time," Frédéric explained. "It keeps moving, steady and stubborn." The left hand represented his life in Paris, structured, constant, and inescapable. Then, he played the melody with his right hand. It was fluid and free, dancing around the steady beat of the left. "The right hand is the soul," he whispered. "It tries to fly away. It lingers on a beautiful memory, and it cries out for what it has lost." The contrast between the two hands was the secret of his music, the struggle between where he was and where he longed to be. Elodie listened as he played the final, delicate trills. They sounded like a bird trapped in a beautiful cage, fluttering its wings one last time before falling silent. In that moment, she understood that Frédéric's music was his way of surviving. He turned his loneliness into something so beautiful that the whole world would eventually use it to find comfort in their own quiet nights. To this day, when people listen to the Nocturne No. 2, they feel a strange sense of peace. They might not know about the fields of Poland or the lonely rooms of Paris, but they hear the secret Frédéric left behind. He taught us that even when we are far from home or feeling alone, music can be the bridge that carries us back to where we belong.
Let's talk about one of the most famous pieces of piano music ever written, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Now, even if you don't recognize the name, I promise you, you absolutely know the melody.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? It's that perfectly sweet, impossibly elegant melody you hear, well, everywhere. In movies, on commercials. It's kind of become the default soundtrack for romance, for fancy Parisian salons, for sophisticated beauty. It just sounds perfect. Almost a little too perfect, don't you think? Because what if all of that perfection is actually a mask? What if it's hiding a story of really deep personal pain? Well, in this explainer, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna peel back the layers of this famous piece to try and find the hidden heart of Chopin's Nocturne. To really get this piece of music, you first have to get the man who wrote it. See, when he composed this, Frédéric Chopin was the toast of Paris. He was this young genius celebrated in all the finest salons. But the image he projected was, let's just say, very different from his private reality. This one line from one of his letters, it just says it all, doesn't it? On the outside, he's performing, he's charming the Parisian elite, but on the inside, his heart and his mind are somewhere else completely, a place he knew he could never go back to. And that feeling, right there, is the key to unlocking this whole piece. And here, you can really see that conflict mapped out. The music that we hear, all that sweetness and elegance, it's a direct contrast to what he was actually feeling, the loneliness of being in exile, the deep anxiety about his future, about his health. So the music isn't really an expression of joy, it's more like a beautiful distraction from his pain. You know, the standard definition of a nocturne is pretty simple. It's music that's meant to evoke the night. It's a style of music that was around before Chopin, and it usually just painted a calm, peaceful night scene. But Chopin, he completely changed the game. For him, a nocturne wasn't about the outside world at all. It was about the inner world. It basically became his personal diary. It was a space for his inner monologue, for all the emotions he couldn't say out loud, for the tears he only shed when he was alone. So, you might be asking, why all this profound sadness? Why was his heart at home? Well, the answer is in the dramatic, frankly tragic events that happened right as his career was taking off. First off, it's so important to remember just how young he was. He wrote this piece when he was only about 20 years old. He's barely an adult, and he's already dealing with this massive personal and political catastrophe that would literally define the rest of his life. Okay, so just look at this timeline. It's pretty dramatic. In 1830, he leaves his beloved Poland for what he thinks is just a regular concert tour. But while he's gone, the Warsaw Uprising breaks out back home, and it's brutally crushed by Russia. And suddenly, just like that, the borders are closed to him, he is trapped. He becomes a political exile in Paris, and he is permanently cut off from his family and his homeland. All right, so now that we have the backstory, where do we actually find this sorrow in the music itself? Let's break the piece down. We can actually trace his hidden emotional journey through 4 distinct steps. We're gonna start with that perfect mask at the beginning, and then we'll see how his real emotions start to leak out. Then we'll pinpoint those moments of pure anxiety in the harmony. And finally, we'll understand what that quiet, fading end really means. So the piece opens with that famous, incredibly intricate melody. It's exactly what everyone in a Parisian salon would have wanted to hear. It's charming, it's polite, it's him playing the part of the brilliant young composer. But just remember that quote, he's smiling, but his heart is somewhere else. This melody, this is the smile. Now this is so important. The main melody repeats a few times, but it is never exactly the same. Each time it comes back, Chopin adds more notes, more little trills, more of this wavering decoration. It's kind of like when someone keeps saying, I'm fine, but with each repetition, their voice starts to tremble a little more, the mask is slipping. And then, all of a sudden, the beautiful surface just cracks. For just a moment, these dark, unsettling harmonies break through. This is where we hear his true state, his melancholy, his loneliness, and the physical frailty from the illness that plagued him his whole life. These chords are like a sudden anxious thought that interrupts a perfectly pleasant conversation. And this, right here, is the core of Chopin's emotional world. The piece doesn't end with a big dramatic crash or a loud cry. There's no big emotional outburst. It just fades away into silence. And that represents a kind of sorrow that isn't performed for other people, but one that's endured quietly, hidden, and completely alone. You know, this emotional blueprint, this way of feeling and expressing things, it didn't just stay in his music, it really profoundly shaped his personal relationships for the rest of his life. When you look at his famously turbulent love life, especially his relationship with the writer George Sand, you see the exact same patterns. There's this deep emotion, for sure, but there's also a hesitation, a holding back. It's a kind of love that always seems destined to leave scars instead of finding a happy ending. This nocturne is almost like a prediction of the man he was going to become. So, the next time you hear this piece, I want you to try to listen to it differently. Try to forget that elegant surface for a minute and listen for the story underneath. Here are 3 specific things I want you to listen for. Okay, first, listen to the right hand, that beautiful, decorative melody. Try to hear it not just as fancy ornamentation, but as a subtle trembling of emotion. Second, Focus on the left hand. Its steady, almost waltz-like rhythm never changes. That's his reality, the constant, recurring loneliness that's sitting underneath everything else. And finally, that very last note. It doesn't just stop, it lingers. It's not a conclusion, it's a leftover feeling, just hanging in the air.
So in the end, what is Chopin's Nocturne No. 2? It's the sound of a young man, all alone in a foreign city, putting on a brave face for the world. It is, quite simply, music left alone on a night that passed with a smile. The question is, now when you hear it, will you only hear the smile, or will you hear the lonely night behind it?
Timeless art.